Good evening, folks. Tonight, it's a night of celebration, a night of reflection, and a night of looking forward into our future, casting our vision. Because, folks, after decades of agonizing thought, self-reflection, analysis, asking the right questions, asking difficult questions, fighting seemingly against our very own nature, our ancestors, those who came before us, came together and brought us a document that was instantly, upon its promulgation in 2010, the envy of the entire globe. Never had there been seen a much more forward-thinking, dynamic, and all-encompassing constitution on the face of the earth. But folks, 14 years down the line, our constitution, we call it new, is still young as far as constitutions go. It's a teenager, I should say, but there's a lot to be said. There's a lot to be thought about, and there's a lot to be discussed about, not just where we're from, but where we're going.
Indeed. That's true. That's the most important thing. They considered it a transformative document.
Absolutely.
But the question today is just what has it done? We're looking at the question of governance. We're looking at the question of human rights, the question of equality, and so much more. The two-third gender rule. I am the lady here. Of course, we're still struggling with that, but so much more therein. But again, we equally have some gains that we have witnessed courtesy of this constitution. And so as we get to this very conversation at the age of 14, exactly the age of 14, 27th of August, 2024, 14 years down, what has the constitution done for you? We'll be discussing that this morning. My name is Linda Lela. Is it morning or evening? It's evening. I know.
Morning.
He looked at me as well. It's the dawn of the new constitution. That's exactly it. So it's at 15 now.
At 15.
We'll be talking about 15.
Yes.
Right.
Perhaps Linda forgot to mention that also on the show is Catherine Simaloy, so we are gender quotient.
Ah.
Yes.
All
Good
right.
evening and welcome to this edition of the People's Court. I am George Maringa, Linda Alela and Victor Muyakane, your fantastic trio, as always, right here on the Daily Report and later on the People's Court. As tonight we look at We the People 14 years on, a document that is now also available on your mobile devices. So you can also blame anyone for not really reading it from the old age to the current age in as much as Gen Z issues are concerned. Welcome. But before then, the highlights.
Yeah.
Tonight, Kenya formally launches Raila Odinga's candidacy for the African Union Commission AUC chairmanship with a landmark ceremony held at State House, Nairobi.
The Honorable Raila Odinga possesses the professional capacity and experience, a proven track record of transformative leadership, and a wide experience of accomplishments at the national and regional levels.
The Employment and Labor Relations Court issues a temporary injunction halting the nationwide strike planned by the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET.
Serikali tumejaribu waangalie matakwa yetu, lakini walitimiza jambo moja peke yake.
And as Kenya commemorates 14 years since the promulgation of the Constitution, we take a closer look at the progress the country has made, especially in light of the recent Gen Z-led protests. Our SMS line is 22047. On X, formerly Twitter, we are at TV47 News, at Muyakane, at Linda_Alela, or at George Maringa_. Please engage us. We look forward to having that very important conversation on the document we entrusted upon ourselves 14 years ago. We the People 14 years on. I am George Maringa. Once again, Catherine Simaloy is on sign language interpretation tonight. Let's get the show on the road, shall we? Tonight, President William Ruto led East African heads of state and their representatives in endorsing opposition leader Raila Odinga's candidacy as the chair of the African Union Commission. President Ruto, during the formal unveiling ceremony at State House, Nairobi, described Odinga as a Pan-Africanist and statesman whose wealth of experience will transform Africa. Odinga says if elected, he will make the African Union people-centered and engineer reforms anchored on an 8-point agenda.
President William Ruto marshaled the support of his fellow East African heads of state in backing former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's candidacy as the chair of the African Union Commission at an unveiling ceremony held at State House, Nairobi. Ruto describing Odinga as a Pan-Africanist and a statesman whose wealth of experience will transform Africa.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I know that Honorable Raila not only possesses the requisite credentials, but he is also the ideal candidate to lead the Africa Union Commission. Accordingly, Kenya endorses his candidature unreservedly.
We are here, Your Excellency, as a country to unveil Kenya's finest to go and lead Africa. It's a proud moment for this country.
Odinga, whose campaign will be anchored on an 8-point agenda, among them economic transformation, enhancing intra-Africa trade, financial independence, peace and security, among others, said he will push for the scrapping of visa in intra-Africa travel while making the AU a people-centered organization.
My selection to be Kenya's candidate is not about one man's ambition, but an African's journey to serve the motherland. Indeed, I plan to constitute my cabinet of chairpersons with a continental outlook. Excellencies, I'm ready to serve. My heart is ready and my hands are steady, and with your support, I shall get the opportunity to be of service to Africa.
With Somalia conveying its apologies for skipping the event, East African leaders, led by South Sudan President Salva Kiir, who is the current chair of the East African Community, endorsed Odinga's bid. Rwanda's Paul Kagame was represented by his Foreign Affairs Minister, and Burundi's Evariste Ndayishimiye was represented by his Prime Minister.
That the United Republic of Tanzania assures Republic of Kenya of its full support for the candidature of Right Honorable Raila Odinga for the position of African Union Commission chairperson, and Tanzania says, Baba anatosha, achaguliwe.
We had a cup of tea, but I told him, I said, no. I actually told him that I was coming here to support Right Honorable Raila.
President Ruto also unveiled Odinga's joint campaign secretariat to be led by PS Foreign Affairs Dr. Korir Sing'oei and Ambassador Elkano Odembo. The campaign team will also have presence in 5 of Africa's regions. It's all systems go for Odinga, who will have to traverse the African continent in a highly intensive shuttle diplomacy, selling his bid ahead of next year's crucial vote in Addis. Apul Kamau, TV47 at State House, Nairobi.
Many thanks, Apollo. Azimio co-principals have appointed Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musoka as the new coalition leader as Raila Odinga transitions to a continental role where he is vying to become the next chairperson of the African Union Commission AUC. Kalonzo has assured that he will provide strong leadership and ensure there is no gap in holding the government accountable. In a press briefing at the Wiper Command Center, leaders including DAPK party leader Eugene Wamalwa and Jubilee Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni expressed their confidence in Kalonzo's leadership. They pledged to support Raila Odinga, recognizing his significant contributions as a leader. This announcement comes as amid discussions about Azimio's future, with some ODM members already joining the government.
That this administration will be kept on its feet. In fact, they will see opposition that they have never seen before. I can tell you that. And so it will be a team, a case of first among equals. And as you can see, this team is growing. It may be thin on the floor of the House. And remember, we talked about state capture, even of Parliament. We are aware of that. But even if 30, 20, 10 members of Parliament remain faithful to this document with regard to holding the government accountable, believe you me, they'll be representing the great majority of the Kenyan people.
The position is none other than Stephen Kalonzo Musoka. Na hii kitu ni rahisi kabisa kwa sababu sasa ni padibili tu. You are either with Operation Okoa Ruto, Operation Okoa Sakayo, or Operation Okoa Kenya. And those who start with the Constitution.
And we have by consensus, and I believe many of us who are in this coalition have all consented to him taking over the leadership of our coalition. We have great faith in his leadership, his experience as the second highest ranking leader in our coalition, a very experienced diplomat, a great lawyer who has a clean record, a man of God, a man of integrity. We have no doubt that even as Baba leaves to Addis, there will be no lack of leadership in our great coalition. In fact, we'll just get stronger.
The Employment and Labor Relations Court in Nairobi has stopped a secondary school teachers' strike called by the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers (KUPPET) pending further orders on September 5th. The Employment Court issued the order on Tuesday in response to an urgent application by the Teachers Service Commission (TSC) lodged on Monday, August the 26th. However, the teachers have vowed to go back to the streets. Anastasia Mukabi reports.
As the teacher strike continues for the second day, the Employment and Labor Relations Court in Nairobi stopped it until the case is mentioned on the 5th of September this year. Cabinet Secretary for Education Julius Migos also urging teachers under KUPPET to cease from striking as the negotiations continue.
CBA, what was in the CBA was the payment. That has been done. But these are legitimate issues that they have and which the government is responding to. All that we are asking is that as we respond to them, they should go back to class and continue teaching as we resolve those administrative issues.
Some teachers have, however, vowed to continue with the strike until their demands are addressed.
We are with some of the principals here, and they are saying there is no money in the account. That is why we are saying strike lazima iendelee. Tunaenda kwa ministry, we are telling the director TSC, we are telling the director ministry that atubanduki na atutishwi.
No promotion, no school. No JSS, no school. No confirmation, no school. No school.
As the teachers' protest continued, teachers stormed in several schools. In Machakos County, protesters stormed at Machakos Baptist Secondary School to remove a teacher who is said to have sneaked in to teach. Police who were trailing them were forced to intervene and push them out of the school compound. As they headed out singing, they asked other teachers to join them in the strike.
We are saying from tomorrow we are going to be even more vigilant. We are not going to have boardroom meetings. We are going to be on the ground, and we are asking those teachers to leave those compounds immediately.
The KUPPET Secretary General Akello Misori has issued a statement urging the members to ignore any distractions and continue picketing until the union signs a return to work formula that addresses their grievances. Now this puts secondary school teachers in a difficult situation. Should they continue to exercise their democratic rights or show up to class tomorrow? Anastasia Mkabi, TV47.
Thank you, Anastasia. Today, Kenya marks 14 years of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. However, over the years, it has been marred with challenges, especially implementation gaps. This year's anti-government protests posing as its greatest test, one that has led to a push for constitutional reform by an awakened generation. Take a look.
Today, 27th of August 2024, marks the 14th anniversary of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, a document envisioned to be the cornerstone of the nation's democracy, justice and equality.
Its document is so critical to the welfare and the future of this country.
Over the years, however, implementation gaps to the document have proven to be the greatest challenge. The recent anti-government protests putting to the fore the country's true reality.
The police brutality witnessed recently, when we had demos against the Finance Bill 2024 and last year 2023, we also have an attempt by some of the Kenya Kwanza legislators to limit these rights. And we must mention the bill by the Mbeere Member of Parliament.
And now a growing movement amongst certain civil society organizations is pushing for constitutional reforms, all in an effort to address the perceived flaws in the current constitution.
And what we ought to still foster is, let us implement the constitution first as it ought to be. Let us breathe life. It's 14 years we have not even fully implemented the constitution before we can start looking at how to change it.
Hence the call for all arms of government to ensure vigilance in safeguarding of constitutional provisions.
As the implementation of the constitution requires actions by the legislature, amendments to the law, require actions by state agencies, and they are dropping the ball. So this is a concern that we have as Kenyans, and as professionals we have a major concern that some of the constitutional and state organs that are meant to be working are not discharging their responsibilities. And Kenya is facing a crisis if the situation is not reversed.
The government has been urged to honor its duty to protect the constitution.
We've always seen in our nation there is a constitution, but the constitutionalism, the implementation in it is very little. Therefore, being a breathing and a living document, it needs to be looked, or rather looked into.
Constitution is a living document, one that requires our constant vigilance and commitment plus respect.
Sheila Chelangat for TV47.
And of course, that story by Sheila Chelangat will be forming part of the conversation we're having tonight. But even before then, death, injuries, abductions and arrests marked the peak of the Gen Z-led protests that began in July, a movement advocating for better governance, which was allegedly countered by government forces. 14 years after the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution, a section of Kenyans are accusing the government of grossly violating the rights and freedoms enshrined in the Constitution, which they claim the government has ignored. Moige William spoke with several people affected during the protests and filed the following report.
I will protect and uphold the sovereignty, integrity, and dignity of the people of Kenya.
That is right. On this day, the 13th of September 2022, President William Ruto took the oath of office as the 5th President of the Republic. And while holding a Bible, Ruto swore to not only protect but also uphold the sovereignty, integrity and dignity of the people of Kenya. It is important to take into consideration these words as they are vital in this report. The events of July 25th are still fresh in the memory of Tabitha Waithera, a mother of two, who is grateful that her 16-year-old daughter is safe after narrowly escaping death. Her daughter was allegedly shot when police opened fire during the Gen Z call protest in Githurai, Kiambu County.
Sisi tulikuwa tumekaa na yeye, mimi nilisikia kama ameniita, nikamuuliza ni nini, hakuongea. Sasa mimi nikaona kaa nainama hivi, nikamfuruta, nikaona hapa ameumia. Kasemekana amepigwa risasi, kuna vitu zimebakia ndani, lazima apelekwe theater afanyiwe operation.
While conducting the interview with Waithera, I noticed that she could not hold back her emotions as she recounted the ordeal. Although her daughter survived what is believed to be a police-fired bullet that nearly tore through her intestines, the incident has drastically altered the life of the Form 3 student who has been unable to return to school since.
Sahi hakuna kitu anaweza fanya, lakini sahi ako at least juu hata kutembea anatembea.
In Nakuru County, Shiko Kehika, a vocal human rights activist, could not dare to even blink as she still looks over her shoulder in fear of being abducted. Kehika reveals that her life took a sudden turn when she was forced to go into hiding for a while after taking a prominent role during the onset of the Gen Z-led protest, which called for good governance in the country.
For me, I know it was horrible. I couldn't talk to my son, I couldn't see him, I couldn't talk to my parents. And I know it also put them in a space where they were also very worried. And as it is, safety comes first. We say we have nothing to lose as we go out to the streets. But at the same time, I think if you can save yourself, you're important to this country alive than dead.
On the 27th of August, the country marks 14 years since the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution, which saw a new dawn for the country. But some are expressing concerns that those in power have deliberately violated certain sections of the Constitution, particularly Chapter 4, the Bill of Rights, which guarantees a range of rights for mwananchi.
So to have stealing and chilling recounts of stories of people who have been abducted in this day and age is a sad event in a nation.
Because the people who took over power that were to protect the Constitution, they are the very, very people that have broken as many rules as possible.
14 years later, since the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution, but a section of Kenyans still disgruntled on how the Constitution is being implemented. At the center of it all, the government, now stakeholders and Kenyans at large, calling for the government to fully adhere to the Constitution. Mwege William, TV 47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Mwege William, for that, as well as Sheila. That has been our coverage of Constitution at 10. But it doesn't end there. At around in the next 10 minutes or so, we shall be starting the conversation on the People's Court on Katiba at 14, the Kenyan Constitution at 14. Keep your feedback coming. Do you think that we are implementing the Constitution as it should be, and what should be done? Our panelists will be in the studio shortly. As the Mpox virus spreads in many African countries, Africa's CDC reports that there is an acute shortage of vaccines with only 20,000 doses procured, yet there is need for more than 10 million doses. And as Elizabeth Atieno now reports, Africa CDC Director General Dr. Jean Kaseya is set to visit Kenya in the next 48 hours to assess the level of preparedness.
So far, Kenya has reported 2 confirmed cases of Mpox, with the Africa Center for Disease Control now set to visit the country in the next 2 days to, among other things, assess Kenya's approach towards vaccination against Mpox, with the Health Ministry saying it seeks to acquire 2 million doses of Mpox vaccines later this year.
And I think I can even fly to Kenya in the next 2 days to meet Kenyan authorities to discuss about how the country is approaching this vaccination.
Kenya has been urged to remain alert and strengthen its surveillance across all points of entry, with a keen focus on truck drivers. And just last week, the Ministry of Health confirmed it has screened over 426,000 travelers.
Because it was not just one stop, then they were tested positive. You know, and sometimes it's too risky for a government to let the situation being like that without taking appropriate proactive measure. And vaccination can be this proactive measure.
The World Health Organization has launched a global strategic preparedness and response plan to stop outbreaks of human-to-human transmission of Mpox through coordinated global, regional, and national efforts.
The plan requires $135 million over the next 6 months to bring these outbreaks under control through comprehensive surveillance and response, minimizing zoonotic transmission.
We are finalizing the response plan, and we'll have this meeting in September, where countries, they will also pledge funding. But so far, what we are getting from the 10 million that we got from the AU, the African Union organ, we are using that to strengthen the capacity of the country to be ready to use vaccine when vaccine will be available.
Strategic vaccinations efforts will focus on individuals at the highest risk, including close contacts of recent cases and healthcare workers, in a bid to interrupt transmission chains.
I have given the green light to the Gavi and UNICEF to proceed with procurement of vaccines pending the EUL decision.
Elizabeth Atieno, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Elizabeth. The Institute of Public Certified Accountants of Kenya, ISPAC, alongside other finance sector authorities, will launch a framework to provide for standards of sustainability reporting in the country after it emerged that companies often inflate performances when sharing such reports. The Capital Markets Authority's CEO, FCPA Wycliffe Shamia, says the joint framework will determine which companies are under obligation to provide full disclosure and how many can do so voluntarily.
Companies will soon be required to follow a set of standards when reporting on their adherence to sustainability, after which a ranking and compliance report will be issued. This emerged after institutions governing the financial realm, including the Capital Markets Authority, ISPAC, NSE, the Public Sector Accounting Standards Board, and the Retirement Benefits Authority came together to formulate a standard framework to provide guidelines for sustainability reporting.
But this is just preparing us, as the chair said, as we all discuss, as in when can we have them adopted, and of course, will they be voluntary or mandatory, and who must report? I think those are questions we are asking ourselves as stakeholders.
Companies, especially those listed on the NSE, are required to publicly share their efforts and level of sustainability compliance. ESG reporting often places favor with investors, a factor that many companies are now taking advantage of without necessarily complying.
Sustainability reporting is time-consuming and therefore requires a lot of time and commitment. Sometimes organizations fail to set measurable goals. And in some instances, we find data overloads being a challenge, limited stakeholder engagement, and also lack of quality data from cross-functional units.
Of course, it goes to improve corporate governance, and we have continued to see the increase in the quality of financial statements and disclosures by various companies.
The bodies now say utmost compliance must be upheld. A roadmap is already underway to adopt guidelines on the jurisdiction of these standards.
Everybody is discussing environmental issues, and perhaps we need to organize ourselves in how these issues are reported within our financial reports.
But for now, it is upon companies to ensure they have the integrity and capacity required for comprehensive sustainability reports. Hibak Said for TV47.
Thank you, Hibak. Ugandan President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni has today sent a stern warning to Embakasi lawmaker Babu Owino, warning him against interfering with Uganda's internal affairs. And as Quinto Wafula reports, in 2018, the then Uganda's Internal Affairs Minister wrote a letter to inhibit Babu from undermining President Museveni. Take a look.
It was during the official launch of Raila Odinga's AUC chair bid. Presidents and other state representatives from various Africa states following protocol.
Thank you.
Unlike other leaders, Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni decided to switch gears, pointing an accusation finger at Embakasi MP Babu Owino for what he said was joining and supporting the Uganda's anti-government group, which is led by opposition leaders, including Robert Chagulanyi, popularly known as Bobby Wine.
There are some individuals in Raila's group who I don't think know what they are doing.
Museveni claiming that several intelligence reports had often located Babu in machinations against the government in Kampala, further asking the Kenyan youthful lawmaker to distance himself from Uganda's internal politics.
I am a consumer of intelligence services. So I always see intelligence service reports. There's a character called Babu. I receive Babu, dealing with anti-Ugandan group, anti-NRM group, seeing Ugandans. So I had never chosen him, but now I am choosing Babu.
The Embakasi East MP, however, fired back at the Uganda president shortly after. Babu took to social media platform X to downplay the president's comments, emphasizing his unwavering support for democratic principles. Owino also reflected on his political journey, sharing that he was raised in a humble background, which gives him a deep understanding of the struggles faced by the poor and those in need. In 2018, a letter from the then Uganda Minister of Internal Affairs, Haji Abubakar, to Kenya's then Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs, Monica Juma, Babu was accused of undermining President Yoweri Museveni's